Okay, so Kylie, you and me, we talk about self-defense all the time. But usually we have Brian here with us. You know, he's kind of the resident expert founder, of Impact Defense and Impact Martial Arts and all of that jazz.
Yep.
And he takes a real interest in all of that stuff. But sometimes it can take up a ton of space in his mind. So, why don't we ask the woman behind the man what it's like to be married to someone who always has self-defense on his mind?
Hello, Mom.
Welcome to the podcast, Julie.
Oh, what an intro. What is it like, you say?
Hang on just a second. All right. Kylie, go ahead and hit us off with an ad.
If you're looking to find some awesome t-shirts, go ahead and go over to faithandfreedomclothing.com. There you can find, like I said, t-shirts. And if you use the coupon code IMPACTDEFENSE, it gets you 15% off of anything that you purchase.
And now time for the news portion of your podcast with your host, me. So this one comes to us from Houston, Texas. A 59-year-old concealed carry holder is happy to have made the decision to carry at work because it likely saved his life. So a 27-year-old man walked into a business and asked the associates about the 59-year-old man's whereabouts. The police said that the 59-year-old man was outside on a work break when he and the 27-year-old got into an argument. Police say that the 27-year-old pulled out a gun during the fight. Then the 59-year-old man told the investigators that he pulled out the gun he owned and shot the man in self-defense. The man who was shot crashed his vehicle in an attempt to flee, but then fled the scene on foot. Later, the officers found him in the area, and paramedics took him to a nearby hospital. The 59-year-old is not predicted to be facing any charges, but he is definitely glad that he was carrying that day. All right, Julie. So before we get into the full meat of just what it's like to be married to him, the very start of it. Now, he wasn't even into martial arts until after you guys got married. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, what was it like? What was your thought process when he brought up that he wanted to start doing martial arts?
That was a long time ago. We've been married longer than you've been alive, so.
That you have.
So, and my memory isn't always the best, but I don't think I tried to stop him or anything.
Okay, but what is the difference in Brian as a person since before and then after starting the whole journey of martial arts, self-defense, all that jazz?
I would say he is one of the most alert people most of the time that you'll ever meet. Always taking in things, noticing things that most of the time I don't pick up on, which I'm thankful for.
Did you remember what the question was? So, the question was, what was he like before, and then what has changed after he took martial arts?
So he is much more alert now. I don't know. The deepest part of him is still the same, I'd say. It's just a few attributes are a little stronger, I think, now than what they were. He's always been very protective and stuff like that.
Now, how quickly did he go from I just want to do martial arts to it is now a major center in his life? How did that change your family dynamic? What overall effect has it had on the relationship? Things like that.
Okay. Well, first off, I would say it was kind of a snowball effect because his his teacher, one of our great friends, he decided to be a pastor. Yeah. Or I think that was when. I could be getting that wrong. But he was going to give up the karate aspect. And in order to continue progressing, Brian was at, I think, brown belt level at that point. So he could teach. And in order to continue, he basically took it on.
So he pretty much took over the school for his instructor as a brown belt.
I believe so, yes.
Now, how much time did that take up? And he was still working at a store?
Yeah, well, it wasn't obviously the business it is today. It's been structured many different ways. It went through a time of being just a hobby. It went through a time just being a basic mission where people just donated. It's taken a lot to get to where it is today. And it is constant learning on the business level, learning on the martial arts level and the self-defense level. It's a continual process.
So anybody who's around Brian or even like sees any of his speaking terms, you can't be around Brian without realizing that he's on a constant search for the next level of whatever he's doing or whatever he's interested in. It's like he learns one thing and there has to be a step up from that, and he has to reach that step up or he feels stagnant. So after, I guess, taking over the school for his instructor as a brown belt, was that next step up when he started doing MMA?
And how did you feel when he started doing MMA?
Let me just say that martial arts, self-defense, totally different ball game from MMA, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. I was not a fan, and that's putting it mildly, of the whole MMA phase.
And you're happy you're out of that phase.
Yes, although sometimes it still
Lingers in him.
rears its head at times. But anyway, yes, MMA is very, I'm sure it has its place. I just don't want its place to be in my life and in my world. It is very rigorous training schedule. It's a very rigorous dieting schedule. And
I'm
it's-
sure that didn't have its greatest effect on Brian's mood whenever he was in that time.
no. It is a great, yeah. When people are hungry, they're no fun to be around. The term hangry came about for a reason.
And Brian's the one who brought that reason about right now.
No, but it is very rigorous, and like I said, it serves a purpose, just not in my world.
Not in the world that she wants to live in.
Now, he said you didn't really come to his
No.
fights.
We had a young child at that time. That was just part of it. That was just part of it, and I think it was probably the best decision I made, and I think he appreciated it, to not be there. Now, mind you, I always knew what was going on. I had my spies who were reporting to me constantly, so it was like I was there without being there.
You just didn't have to see him getting
I
punched in the
didn't
face.
have to be around the, they say actors have to get into a mindset and everything. Fighters are a lot like that. You have to go to a place that, quite honestly, it's not pretty. And it's just best sometimes to not be around certain people. Like, his parents never went either. I mean, honestly, they
It's
did.
understandable.
For totally, I'm sure, almost different reasons. But yeah, it has been proven. We have time tested this and tried it. I have watched him spar and regretted it, and he regretted it. So it's just best. I can watch him do kata all day long, and we get along fine.
It doesn't
he
involve
gets-
punching people.
Right. He gets mad at himself, and I see that, and I know what's going on. But that's a whole lot better than watching, quote unquote, controlled fighting.
Now, I can speak from personal experience. Whenever I first met Brian, it was a time when you weren't at the school quite as much, because the year I started was right around when you guys had that wreck, which we're not going to go into. But so you weren't around quite as much. So I just really met Brian because he was my instructor. I started in martial arts. He was my instructor in martial arts, and he still is. But that's how I got started. And so being around Brian, you get this mental picture of a person on first meeting them and being around them, you know. And then you find out that they're married. And then you get a mental image before you meet the person that they're married to on what they must be like to be able to, I don't want to say put up with, but put up with a certain kind of person. And so in my head, I'm going, who is this dude's wife? What is she like? You know? And so I'm starting to build this mental picture, and then I meet Julie, and she's like this wonderful flower of a person that you would never expect to be with someone who fought MMA. And so it was very interesting for me getting to know you after getting to know Brian, and then seeing how that relationships work, because
It's different. Yeah.
it works so well, but you never expect it. Like you never see your guys' relationship coming.
Waffles and spaghetti, I think. I think that was a book, and people were like, "That's y'all."
Oh gosh. But it has been really interesting getting to know you guys individually and you guys as a couple. And so I guess that brings about the next stage of your life, because we just talked about MMA. You didn't really spend much time around Brian when it was dealing with MMA. And there was a whole lot of relief when he stopped doing MMA. But when it comes to his next stage, which is his self-defense journey and really getting into reality-based self-defense, there was a whole lot more encouragement from you in that area. Like, you start to see you getting excited in that area of his life when he starts working on the self-defense, and he's constantly saying, yeah, Julie brought to my attention that we need to work on this area or learn more about this area of self-defense. And so that's where you start to see you getting on the uptake of, I can get behind this one. It's like, you just leave that MMA behind and we're going to move on to the reality-based self-defense. So what was that change like when the focus shifted from just being really into that martial arts area to now learning about the reality-based self-defense? And how did that bring it more together for you instead of you both doing your very separate separate hobbies?
Well, I think the self-defense training portion better goes with the martial arts aspect, not the MMA so much. I think the martial arts and the self-defense are a good marriage. I really do. And you can pretty much travel from one of those areas to the other and gain knowledge very easily. So, and it's something everybody needs. You don't have to be a martial artist to need self-defense training.
Yeah, because you're very much not a martial artist.
Yes, unless you count osmosis. Yes.
She's the lady up front.
I mean, if you watch something for over 20 years, and I mean watch it, and you're around it a lot, then you pick up some of it. Like, I don't know the katas, but I can basically tell you when somebody is doing it wrong. Because I'm like, not quite right. Or where's the Kia?
You
I
learn
want a
things
Kia.
without putting it into practice.
Right.
So, yeah, you are not a martial artist in any way, but you are in the martial arts world by osmosis, as you would say. For you, self-defense better marries the martial arts world because for you, it's real-world application. Okay? Because MMA is closer to a real fight than just sparring in the martial arts world.
She still doesn't like to watch sparring though
Right.
either.
You don't like watching that either. But it's still not the real world. And you're very real world focused. Like this is what applies to everyday life, and you'll put that into practice. You're just not so much on the strict martial arts world. Martial arts means the art of fighting, and everybody has their different art of fighting. Some people prefer mixed martial arts, lots of different arts of fighting, and Julie would prefer just no practical, everyday, this is how to keep people safe. Okay? One thing that you learn about Julie from being around her is that she is very people-focused. She wants the people to get what they need to be safe and to grow as a person, but she's not as much focused on the strict martial arts area of that. When people come into class, me and Brian, as the instructors, our goal is to make sure that the kids or whoever is in the class at that point gets what they need to progress in the martial arts world, in the self-defense world, grappling, all of that. Julie's just there to make sure that everyone is getting the full atmospheric effect of this business, to make sure we stay together as a business family, make sure everyone who walks in that door gets what they need information-wise and gets to know our goals as a business. And so I guess self-defense just really goes with your values in the first place, which is why you would see that marriage between martial arts and self-defense. Okay, so moving on to about 2020. Okay, 2020 is where a big uptake in our self-defense world hit. Like, struck like a bullet, and we are on now. We're doing NRA stuff, learning about rifle stuff. He's starting to take pistol and rifle instructor classes, concealed carry instructor classes, getting more information in the reality-based self-defense world. All of it's taking an upturn, and so now that's occupying a lot of his time. What I'm asking is, where do you fit into that? Where have you been the last 3 years?
I've been here. We discussed it before he got really deep into it. And it was a direction I could see we needed to take. Because you've got to keep learning. You've just got to. Never stop learning. And he is one of the best teachers I know of. And he doesn't think so, but I do. And so it's been fun, but it's hard to watch him because he had to spend time away. He had to spend a lot of money. He had to spend all this stuff to try to get to where he needed to be able to conduct courses in the manner that he prefers. He's very much so if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it this way, and it's going to be handled well. And he wants people to tell him, hey, you need to do something a little bit different here, or wow, that really worked, and all this stuff. He feeds off that. That helps things improve.
Brian always says that he doesn't want to just bull crap it. He wants to get people the best information he possibly can to keep people as safe as possible. He's a perfectionist in so many areas. I'm sure that can get to be a little overwhelming. Or a lot overwhelming. So when it comes to that perfectionism and the just diving straight in and getting down as far deep as he can into something, that takes up a lot of brain space. Okay? Now, I'm sure we have women listeners or family members of people who are kind of that way, where they dive straight into something. And this is by no means a marriage podcast, but I think it really could help to hear from you how you handle when he's so deep into these are all of the things I have to find out about and know and perfect. It could be helpful for people to hear how you handle that, or
sometimes not well. That's how I handle it. But I think it's important because I can tell, usually, not always, when he's diving down like way deep into something and I need to get the net and try to bring him back up. and so that's what I try to do. It works sometimes it doesn't. Because sometimes I have to go, you've got this, you know. Because, if you're teaching a seminar, you have X amount of time. You can only cover so much in X amount of time. And sometimes you have to decide what's the most important thing. So if these people are coming here for this, what's the most important thing that I want them to leave with? And that's true with classes, because I would say the most important thing with us, is we want people to leave, yes, knowing, how to protect themselves. But we also want them to know how to be kind. We also want them to know, confidence and stuff like that. So it's not all self-defense. That's all we teach. No. Sometimes that's just a side product of what we teach.
just life skills.
Yes.
In the first
Yes.
place is how to handle life with confidence.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm going to be honest, for me, and I believe also for Brian as well, sometimes our just normal life skills falls behind when it comes to, like, when we're learning about something, our regular life skills, taking care of ourselves, sometimes falls behind a little bit because we're so distracted. It's almost like we can't even think about pouring coffee when we have this amount of stuff to do, you know? And that is something I feel like Brian has had going on a lot in the past 3 years because so much learning has taken place in the last 3 years. And we're working on restructuring a lot of the systems and the business, and there's a whole lot going on, not to mention just stuff inside of your family, like difficult things happening, one thing after another for you guys for the past.
Yeah. And we're not alone. The last 3
several
years have been
years.
hard for a lot of people. If you know a small business owner, check on them. Seriously, check on them.
Check on them, check on their wife, check on their
Yeah.
child.
Yeah, it's because, and I mean, there have been some businesses that have thrived during this period of time.
Zoom.
Yeah, yeah, and, you know, and some of those businesses have a little bit of guilt. Because we've talked with somebody and they felt bad that their business was doing good because they knew we were having to fight to just keep it going. And it's still a fight, in case you were wondering. But hey, we're still swinging. So it has been a rough 3 years. We are very thankful for our Impact family because we have had people that have been able to step up and keep things going so we could be where we absolutely needed to be when we needed to be there. Mm-hmm. And that's a gift we don't take for granted because we have a business, yes, but it is also, we try to make it an environment where you feel like family, you feel like friends, and you feel like you know, if you have an issue, you have a problem, we try to help. We're trying to figure out ways to do more of that because we feel like we don't quite do enough of that. We do a can drive at Christmas, and honestly, if the past 3 years have taught us anything, it's that we need to do that more because these resource centers and stuff, they're struggling too because everybody's had to dig deep to keep going. And your places like that depend on others. And so, and it's been really nice to see our students come in and bring in a bunch of stuff, and we know we're giving that to somebody else. That's just great.
Okay, so I think we can confidently do probably a closing question. What do you have to say to the other Brians out there? You know, the ones who are trying to juggle all of the things that they're learning about, you know, trying to be a protector and a provider for their family, but also having XYZ other things going on that they're trying to put all of it together. What advice do you have other than just slow down and breathe for a minute? It can be that.
Yeah. I think we all need to remember, because the past 3 years, I think there's been almost this idea of isolation, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think everybody needs to know they're not alone. Everybody needs to be willing to say, hey, I need some help. Can you maybe do this? Or what do you think about that? Everybody needs somebody, because we all need each other.
All right, well, thank you, Julie, so much for being on the podcast, and I'm sure Brian is going to be unbelievably uncomfortable that this entire thing has just been about what it's like being married to me, and oh my gosh, what are they saying downstairs, you know? Or, oh no, everyone's going to hear what my wife thinks of me.
This was his idea, just so you know.
Actually, the only part of this that was his idea was just us three down here recording a podcast. It being about him was not necessarily his idea. But, I mean, what other situation do we have where we get to be alone with Julie downstairs and ask her a bunch of questions about Brian and him not be here? Really? Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for answering the questions, and just keep doing what you're doing. And I guess everybody remember that you're not alone. And there have been hard things this past 3 years for everybody. And to other Brians and Julies in the world, just give yourself some time to be together and breathe. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to write comments, leave us a review, rate us in Apple Podcasts, or whatever streaming service that you use. It really helps us out whenever you leave us a rating and write reviews, so make sure to leave those.
And check us out at impactdefense.online.
Yes. Check us out at impactdefense.online.
Stay safe, sailor, and we'll see you in the next podcast.
Bye.
Bye.